Hi, stock investors. JJ here. Welcome back. Well, Nvidia news is a lot to catch up with. We're going to look at some analysis, some commentary from Stacy Ragson from Bernstein, Dan Ives as well, and others. Is Nvidia staging a rebound? It's had a pretty good run in the past 5 days after dipping a long way, well over 20%. So let's just get into what they say here, and we'll look at the stock as well. And they're going to talk about fundamentals, upcoming earnings. Let's get into it.
A fresh read from the chips this morning. Taiwan Semi reporting a 45% jump in July.
Taiwan Semiconductor. Nvidia is a customer of Taiwan Semi, of course. Very strong company, Taiwan Semi.
Revenue compared to last year. That was thanks to strong demand for the company's AI chips. Shares are, well, they're bouncing around along the flat line here, but a big outperformer on the year.
Yep, 58% up on the year, Taiwan Semi. Okay, in relation to Nvidia, they're going to talk about. Let's get into it.
Okay, one of their key customers, of course, is Nvidia, and that stock has been whipsawed this week. It's coming off what is its best day this month, but the company has shed about $1 trillion in market cap since mid-June when it was at its highs. Let's get more on that name.
$1 trillion in market cap. Let's quick look at the share price before they talk here. So 13.8% in the past 5 days, but if we go back a month, down 20% still on the month to date. Anyway, that's the context.
What Stacy got to say. Stacy Ragson. Stacy, always great to have you. You know, let's just start on Nvidia. Some of the news this week on the delays potentially as a result of sort of design issues around Blackwell. Just give me your take. Is it real, and what's it going to mean?
Yeah, it seems like it's real enough. There's enough smoke there. There's some fire. We've had some confirmation from other folks in the supply chain. Supermicro kind of alluded to it, and so it seems real. It doesn't seem major, right? It seems like a relatively minor design issue. It looks like they may have already fixed it. We've got maybe a 2 to 3 month delay, I think. What that really means is...
So yes, a delay then from Nvidia and earnings coming up. What will they say on the call there about that? Is that going to affect things? A delay, it doesn't look, as he said, doesn't look like a long delay, but we don't know yet.
Is where people were hoping that like real volume shipments would happen in calendar Q4. It looks like it may be Q1, so it's a slight push out. You have to remember, this stuff is difficult to do. So I mean, like even Nvidia is not necessarily immune to it. In the meantime, though, like we've had hyperscale CapEx guides that are all still going up. All of those would have incorporated whatever is going on. Like they didn't just find out about this, because of the news stories. They would have incorporated it. And Nvidia's got strong demand for their existing architecture, which is called Hopper, and it looks like they're likely increasing production of that to try to backfill and smooth things over until we actually get the Blackwell launching in more volume, maybe a quarter later. But structurally, I don't think it's that big of an issue. Now sentiment-wise, clearly it's impacted the stock. I think the stock's been two things. One was there's just been a general reduction of sentiment on the AI space in general. People are just starting to look at lots of dollars are getting spent. They're wondering about where's the return. So the sentiment wasn't quite as supportive as it had been. And then you have this on top of it, which weighs on it. So, I mean, that's kind of what's been going on. But structure...
It's a reasonable summary of what's been happening. Sentiment, AI space going down. We've had earnings coming out from the mega techs. Meta seemed to be the best in terms of AI. Some green shoots coming up there, possibly for AI, some actual return on investment. Microsoft and Google was a question mark. Tesla, of course, is still pretty much down. Not much to speak of with AI there until they get the robo-taxi and maybe the robot much later on. But 20 to 25% down. It's had a dip, and did it get carried away? Did it get ahead of itself? Possibly. And will it stage a comeback? Seems to be staging a comeback. Can it be sustained?
Actually, I don't know that anything really has changed with Nvidia. Right. We got a little push out. I think it'll be okay.
All right. Well, right. I mean, demand is demand. It's still there, as you point out. What about the stock itself and the multiple and what we've seen in terms of that, and whether that makes it even more compelling, I guess, from the perspective of somebody like yourself?
Yeah, look, so NVIDIA's never really been all that expensive. I mean, even at its peak, it was maybe 40 times forward earnings. The sell side forward numbers that's based on are likely still too low. 40 times is about its 5-year median or 5-year average, so it's not actually that expensive. It's cheaper now. It's probably 30 times now. At least I think you've de-risked it a little bit, like going into the back half on the back of this. And if they do announce some kind of a delay, if they verify it on the call, at this point it won't be everybody kind of knows about it. So yeah, we can kind of work through this. Demand still looks really strong. If you're pushing, volume into next year, it actually makes next year look better. Again, more upside to the numbers, hopefully. Yeah, I think the valuation here still looks quite attractive.
I think the valuation looks attractive. There's quite a lot of noise going on in the background there, some sort of end of day party there. So on the day, Nvidia, just on this last day as I speak, is down fractionally, but yes, up on the week. That week, Friday, ending of the day, ending of the week. What will it do next week? Will it rebound? He does say the fundamentals are still good and it doesn't seem so expensive. So these upcoming earnings are going to be very interesting to say the least.
Okay. Stacy, I realize you don't actually cover this name, but Applied Materials, we're going to get those results.
Okay, they're going to get onto Applied Materials. We'll move on here and let's see what... Let's move to Dan Ives. Let's see what Dan Ives has got to say on Nvidia in general. He's pretty positive as usual, and he's going to talk about what he thinks is coming up here. I've gone to the clip where he's talking, the part of the clip where he's talking directly about Nvidia. There's more to it, but let's see.
Do you think, what kind of risk event do you think NVIDIA earnings at the end of the month is going to be? Because I think we have Jackson Hole on the same week, so it's going to be a lot. Plus, it's the last week in August, right into Labor Day weekend. What risk event are we set up for here?
I think that's to get a popcorn moment in terms of NVIDIA. I mean, even if you could...
Popcorn moment, drink. He's always saying catchphrase, things like that, isn't he?
I'm seeing some of the breadcrumbs going into this robust demand in terms of what we see. And I think right now, the street needs to see that to just give further credence. What we saw in Microsoft, Palantir, Alphabet, ServiceNow, and others, in terms of monetization happen in AI. But that's me one of the most anticipated earnings calls for hearing from Jensen and NVIDIA probably in the last 4 or 5 years.
For sure. And the earnings call's very significant. People are going to be hanging on that call. The headline down here, by the way, it's partly cut off, but it says NVIDIA value takes 900 billion hit. That, if you think about that, it's incredible. Of the stock there, the market cap, 900 billion. The better part of $1 trillion off the market cap. Wow.
So let's look past that earning call, and we're looking at late September. We've had perhaps a 25 basis point Fed rate cut, maybe even 50. But what we're also going to be seeing is probably more evidence that the economy is slowing. So what does that do to the demand story for all of this AI?
Yeah, look, but right now, I mean, balance sheets are as healthy as they probably have ever been. I mean, if you go back to the last decade or more, and you look at a once in a 40-year cycle in terms of AI spend, and as this sort of, I'll call them as a Goldilocks scenario plays out, we get through September, I think 2025 numbers come up in terms of for tech, and you're going to have more and more investors needing to play these names going into the next year, because of where the growth is. Mm-hmm. And I think that continues to be the issue. Growth is in tech, and that's why I'd rather pay up to play these names that continue to outperform.
So he's still very bullish there. And as he said, through September, it is going to be interesting. We're in the summer. This August period is a weird period. It's been very volatile in the market. But as again, we'll see what happens with earnings. Now, if you're getting value out of this episode, please remember to smash that like button to help the algorithm to spread it for more people. I'd really appreciate that. And before we get into Dan Ives a bit more, I just want to tell you about this, that I have partnered with ShareSide to give you, my viewers, my community, a special offer here. See the special offer? I can't promise that will last forever, but ShareSide is a portfolio tracking and reporting tool that helps with tax reporting. If you've use different brokers and even Bitcoin, they can bring it all in to see the true performance of your investments. I wouldn't recommend anything that I don't use myself, and I do use it. It's a really good tool. And here, if you go to this video on the landing page, I'll put a link in the description to this if you want to see this and see that special offer, which probably won't last. And there we see if you go to this page, you can see all of the things that it can do. So go and check that out. Okay, let's get back to Dan Ives. We've got one more clip after this where we're going to talk about the fundamentals being strong of Nvidia as well. So stay around for that one. This will be a bit of a longer video. There's a lot of news and a lot of analysis today on this end of the week here. So let's get into more of what Dan Ives says. I think he's finished talking about Nvidia, but he's talking about AI in general, I think.
Let's go to TSMC. You mentioned that. So sales soared 45% in July, accelerating its pace of growth from that June quarter. And that's all about the strong demands for AI. Just walk me through when you see these
45% growth in that quarter. Growth is not the problem, but Nvidia is going to be hard to keep up with that growth. But the other companies, these mega caps, have been spending big, and that hasn't slowed down. We just saw that in the earnings coming out from those mega cap companies, the mega tech companies. So presumably Nvidia's earnings should be good, but we just don't know. We can't predict. Something in the background could be happening, and there's that delay on their products as well.
These kind of numbers, like what goes through your head?
Look, it goes back to any of the bears that have been sitting in those caves in hibernation mode the last 18 months. When they say AI is hype, look at those numbers. It goes the exact opposite. And I think we'll see the same with Nvidia. We saw it with Microsoft and others. That is eye-popping growth. That speaks to the demand story that's happening. You contrast that with Cisco and others. That's where the growth is. And that just gives further and further credence to the AI revolution playing out.
So looking further ahead.
Oh, she's like going like 2025. She's
no.
You went through the rate cut.
I went through the rate cut. No, there's one more event in 2024 that I would like to discuss. Presidential election. Is this something that the AI play even cares about? Or is it just kind of, let's just make sure everything goes smoothly and then we continue with business as normal?
Well, I think it does, because ultimately, if a Trump presidency, if that ultimately happened, I mean, that you could argue that would be maybe negative for the AI trade in terms of tariffs, what that could do to China, U.S.-China cold tech war. A Harris ticket getting in would probably be more bullish for tech, and especially even on tech M&A, I think it would be probably positive there, depending on what happens with FTC and Con. So you could argue that that's something that the market's trying to figure out in terms of this Trump trade potentially reversing, and now what that means for Harris. But in terms of AI, the biggest issue comes down to China. Harris ultimately would probably be a little more bullish relative to that, similar to what we've seen. Trump would be negative.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there. Possibly, it depends. Trump can do different things, but could he annoy the Chinese more? And tariffs, the tariffs are a big question. There are already tariffs on EVs. The Democrats have put tariffs on EVs, Biden administration up 100%. So to stop BYD and helping Tesla. That's not why they're doing it, but other American-made cars as well. All right, let's go to the last one here. We've got Nvidia fundamentals are extremely strong, says Bank of America analyst Vivek. Okay, let's see what he's got to say about these fundamentals. As I said, this is a bit of a longer one. Stick with me. There's a lot of Nvidia news today, a lot of commentary as the stock attempts a rebound.
Nvidia and other chip stocks surge over 5% Thursday as tech led a market rebound. Joining us now with more on the sector is BofA Securities Senior Research Analyst Vivek Arya. Vivek, great to have you with us. I know we highlighted the 6% gain that Nvidia saw yesterday, but if you take a look for the week, Nvidia is actually underperforming the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index. Nvidia's down about 2%, and the SOX is up almost 3%. And there have been doubts since probably that June 20th Q reversal date where Nvidia shares hit a new high and then closed on lows, where the stock has really been struggling. So where do you come out on how the stock is?
Well, as we said, if we go back 5 days, it's actually up 13.8%. So this must have been at the time when they were talking about it, not quite finishing the week there, but it's up on the week.
Valued, and if there was just too much hype in the stock.
Good morning, Melissa. So I think practically speaking, whether it's NVIDIA, whether it's the rest of the semiconductor space, we could stay volatile until NVIDIA reports later this month, and we have the required reset in any delays associated with their new BlackBerry chip, which I think is actually not that big. But if we take a step back, we have to separate what's happening in the market from the fundamental side. I think what's happening in the market and the volatility has nothing to do with semis, but this is where all the gains were because AI was the best game in town. And that's why these companies saw the most drawdown also during this volatility. But let's look at the fundamental side. Number one, every one of NVIDIA's top customers, whether it is Amazon, whether it is Meta or Microsoft or Google, they all said they are investing more, not less, in AI.
That's true. Yep.
Number two, if you look at NVIDIA's top supplier, Taiwan Semi, they had very strong outlook. In fact, this morning they gave very strong guidance for their last month of results.
Absolutely.
And number three, if you look at NVIDIA's top system partner, Supermicro, I know they got dinged on the margin side, but if you actually look at the sales growth that they showed for the next 12 months, up 90%, that is 2 times what people are modeling for NVIDIA's growth, and NVIDIA usually outgrows.
These are big growth numbers from these. The question is it getting ahead of itself? Did it get ahead of itself, even though the growth's very strong?
So I think the fundamentals are still extremely strong, but the market is going to go through its volatility, which we think should subside by the time NVIDIA reports its results, because the fundamentals are very strong. And the final point on valuation, if I take the Mag 7 outside of NVIDIA, they are trading, and the broad market, it's trading roughly 2 times its earnings growth for next year. NVIDIA is trading 0.8 times, right? So it's trading less than 30 times for over 35 to 40% earnings growth. So I think fundamentals are strong and valuation is still very compelling.
Unless there's a doubt on the earnings growth. and I guess that's the key part of the equation where we'll get some more guidance from NVIDIA. In terms of the reports of the...
See, again, the earnings call, a lot is hinging on this earnings call if they can keep up that growth, and then the guidance they have as well.
Delay to the Blackwell chip. The reports first came out of the information. And I'm wondering, it's interesting because when we hear about delays to other hardware items, you think about it, is it going to be a sale denied or a sale delayed? So in your view, these are sales that will be delayed, perhaps. Correct? That these sales will actually happen. It's just maybe it's pushed out a quarter, 2 quarters, whatever.
Yeah, so if we look at demand for NVIDIA's Hopper product, which is the product before Blackwell, demand for that is off the charts right now. And that's what we heard from Supermicro. They guided well above consensus, and a lot of that is actually based on the Hopper product, because we just have had this period of insane supply constraints in the industry. And just because Blackwell is delayed a little bit doesn't mean the supply constraints have gone away. So any customer who can put their hands on Hopper is still able to buy that product. Now, when it comes to Blackwell, there are many different versions of Blackwell. The most extreme versions that are in the highest, most densest version of the rack scale architecture, they are perhaps pushed out by a quarter or so. So that, I think, can be reflected in numbers. But when it comes to other versions of Blackwell, I do think that they will start to ship some Blackwell later this year. But the key point is that demand in combination of Hopper and Blackwell, I still think is extremely strong for them.
I want to go elsewhere in the chip space. AMD.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. That's all the talk about NVIDIA. What do you think of that? It's going to be fascinating, these upcoming earnings, so much writing on that. We don't have much too long to wait. He did say that he thinks the volatility in the markets will subside before earnings. I mean, if there was extreme volatility around the time of NVIDIA earnings, that would add to the anxiousness around the earnings if they can pull it off and come out with another excellent earnings or exceed the growth that the market's expecting. Anyway, that is what we have. And by the way, I want to tell you about Patreon. If you're not a Patreon member yet, I'll put a link in the description to this. Over there I do weekly investing updates, things I don't share anywhere else, that I don't share publicly either. This is just for private Patreon members. And also stock analysis. Of course, I've started 6 of these modules, starting right from the very beginning, and I'm going to go do a lot of those right up to advanced. And so go and check that out if you want to. I'll put a link in the description, and it's just $5 a month. I can't promise to be that price forever. So go and see that now if you want to. And thanks for watching today. Thanks for your company. This is a bit of a long one, but there was a lot of news to get through. So thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.